Hi everyone, welcome to our Flipped Collaborate session for Assignment 2 Folio of EDU 40002. I'm Erin and I will be running the session for you tonight just to go through the assignment requirements and to hopefully help prepare you for the assessment. Okay, so here is a suggested format and structure for your folio. So you will notice that the folio requirement is for you to submit 2 plans. So you'll have one plan designed for early childhood, so for birth to 5, and then there will be another plan designed for primary age students. So that would be grades foundation to 2, approximately ages 5 to 8. So you'll create design plans for both of these learning environments. So this is a little bit of a recommended kind of word count there for each plan. So for the first 2 parts, so for the overview and summary, for each of those, probably devote about 200 words to that, and then allow about 800 words for the rationale. So 2,000 words altogether, 2 plans, 1 early childhood and 1 primary. So the folio is written in third person, so no I or we or anything like that, no personal pronouns. So just keep it, with like an academic kind of voice in your writing. You can go up to 10% over the word limit or under 10%, but try to keep it as close to the 2,000 words as you can. Headings won't be included in the word count, so that's a bonus. And make sure that you use the unit readings and other relevant references and links to the EYLF and also to the AC. Okay, so just explaining these elements of the folio a little bit more. So the first component that you will have in both of your plans that you do is a floor plan. So we need 1 floor plan for the outdoor space, which is in the early childhood context, and we need 1 floor plan for the indoor learning environment, which is the primary context. So these plans can be hand-drawn, or you can use a computer application for this. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that shortly. We also need some visuals, so it could be some pictures, sketches, photos, basically to illustrate what that particular environment is going to look like. And we also need a textual explanation as well, which is what's going to take up the word count component of your assignment. So we recommend that you use this particular format here. So in each of your plans, there would be the overview part where you explain, the objectives of the particular space that you've set up. Outline your environment and a little bit of a description there. And then in the next section, you'd be explaining the particular space, so the features of the space, the age group it's for, and then some of the other characteristics that we're looking for as well. So it could be making points about, accessibility, how flexible the space is, etc. And then in your rationale, this is where you really go into the key features of the space in a lot more depth, where you also consider how your learning environments are engaging for students, how they promote active learning, and also constructive play as well. So these are all really important components of the assessment that you will be assessed on. And then we'd also like you to talk about the sources that you've used as inspiration for your learning spaces. So it could be your own child's early learning environment. Maybe there's something there that you love that has inspired you, or perhaps you visited a museum, or maybe, your child's primary school environment, and perhaps that's given you an idea for the learning environment that you've come up with yourself. I know at the school that my kids go to, so they're both in primary school, they have a really lovely space there where it's called a sensory garden, and they've got musical instruments, and they've got some play equipment and things like that. It's all set up. It's really, really lovely. It's such a relaxing place for children. Now, I will note there, though, that in this assignment, we need the primary learning space to be an indoor one, not an outdoor one. So that's an important point to make there. It's the early learning environment that needs to be the outdoor space for the purposes of this folio. And you also need to include a reference list at the end of the folio, so just one main reference list. So this will include any readings that you've referred to, and also don't forget to include images as well that you've used in your folio. So I like to see these separated, so I recommend including the images separately underneath the main reference list. So when you're planning for your learning environment, like I mentioned before, you can use either hand-drawn plans, or you can also use some great design or drawing apps that we recommend here, or you can find your own one if you don't want to use one of these ones. So you'll see on the Padlet for this unit, if you go down to Tools, then there's some links to some URLs there with some great tools that you might like to use. I haven't used all of these before, so I'm not exactly sure, which one would be the best one, but give them a go and see what you think. I quite like Smart Draw, but again, really it depends on your preference there. Okay, so while we're on the Padlet, actually, I'll just also mention too that there's a few samples here of some different plans here, and hopefully this will give you a few ideas as well of things that you might like to do. So I'm just going to, sorry for leaning over, just going back to my slides now. Fantastic. And you'll see there's an example plan here of an indoor environment, and see how there's labels there explaining the different features of the environment as well. So yeah, that's just an example of the kind of thing that we're looking for. Be as creative as you want to with this. Okay, in the real world, of course you'd have a budget, so you couldn't just, put anything in the environment. There'd be monetary constraints there, but for the purposes of this assessment, there aren't any limitations there financially, so, spend as much money as you like on it. Okay. So, as far as the assessment goes, I just wanted to draw your attention to the points here. So these design plans need to promote engagement, active learning, and constructive play. So in your folio, you will need to explain in your analysis as to how your learning environments achieve those objectives. And when looking at the assessment criteria here, so you'll notice here that you do need to be able to explain key aspects and features of play environments, and you need to be able to do that for children aged birth to 8 years. So that's why we're giving you that opportunity there to present the 2 plans for the 2 different learning contexts. You also need to be able to talk about some of the aesthetic and creative features of the environments. So I guess think about what it is about those environments that make them, beautiful, welcoming, inspiring places for your students. I guess what is it about them that makes it really, visually appealing and also just really pleasing, for students, and makes them want to go to those places in order to play and explore and learn. So have a think about that when you're coming up with your learning environments. And we also want you to analyze nature pedagogy. We'll do a little bit more discussion of that as we get through the next modules in the unit. So you'll find that particularly weeks 8 through to 11, you'll find the readings there are really fantastic to support you for this assessment. And we also want you in your assessment to analyze the natural materials. So it might be, the timber, chairs and tables, things like that. And also outdoor play spaces as well. So, whether there's particular natural characteristics about those places, making them really inviting for children. It could be, maybe there's this big tree house in the outdoor environment that children love. So I guess have a think about that when you're choosing these spaces. Okay, I will just take you across to the assessment brief for a moment. So I just want to take you down to the rubric here. So I've gone through quite a bit of this already in the slides. So see how I mentioned about the weeks in the modules that are of greatest relevance to the assignment. So they're mentioned here as well. So please do make sure that you do those readings. I know it gets hard with a lot of assignments due towards the end of the unit, but it will really make a big difference when you're doing your assignment if you have the reading behind you. Okay, so just scrolling down here, I was talking there a little bit about the assessment criteria. The last criterion also is that you will be assessed on the way that your assignment has been presented, and also the written expression as well that you use, so your academic writing. So if we just look down here to the pass criterion, it's always a really good starting point, especially with the holistic rubric, because you need to meet all of the criteria there. So each point here within that standard statement at a pass level, you need to meet all of those, and then beyond that to move into the credit band. So in order to pass, it's very important that both plans are presented. So you can't pass the assignment by just, submitting one plan. So both need to be there. And it is very important that the plans are for the relevant levels as well. So we need the outdoor plan for the early childhood, early learning setting, and we need the indoor plan for the primary setting. So it's important that you do discuss those key aspects and features of the play environment and how these support children's learning. So that's very important, and how this is achieved in your plans. So you need to be quite analytical and thoughtful in your analysis of what you're doing and explaining the reasons for the choices that you've made as well. So, mentioned before a little bit here about describing the aesthetic and creative features of the environments and how this encourages children to be engaged in those spaces and learn actively and through constructive play as well, and also those natural elements. So they're all those points I was talking about in the criteria. Okay, so this is another point that I haven't touched on so much yet. So you really need to be able to demonstrate some ideas about the best practice. So you need to think about what learning environments do help constitute best practice in both settings here. So in this case, at a pass level, it might be that you've got some of the the basics in terms of your justification of your choices and how this kind of fits in with the objectives of the EYLF. But you've just done that sort of as a minimum. You haven't really gone beyond that at the pass level. So you've presented everything in a clear manner to demonstrate what you set out to achieve in the planning, that this is also evident in your folio as well, and that your written expression is appropriate and that you're referencing according to the APA guidelines. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of the points for all of these because you can read this yourself in the assessment brief, but I just wanted to highlight really what the basics we're looking for at a pass level. And what you'll see as you move through them, there's a lot more detail in the planning and the discussion around your design and the reasons behind what you have chosen as well. And there's a lot more academic literature. So mentions here in the high distinction range, scholarly literature has informed your beliefs. So things like academic journal articles and, textbooks and things like that, as well as the curriculum as well. And ideally, you should be talking about the EYLF when you're looking at the early learning context, and you should be making reference to the Australian curriculum when you are looking at the primary context. Okay, so I'm going to just minimize that now and go back to here. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to just briefly talk to you about including images. So it's very important that you don't have children appearing in any of the photos that you include in this assignment. Even if they do have permission for photos to be published, we don't want you including children in these photos. Okay? And they're not necessary anyway for your floor plans. All right. And if you are referencing images that you have found from somewhere, so you might have seen a great image of a learning space online, then you need to make sure that this is referenced properly. So the caption that you would include underneath the image, it would say figure. So, if it's the first image you're including in the folio, it would be figure 1. Just a very brief description of what it is that the picture is of. And then also just the details here, like the citation there for the source. Okay. A cool hint for you. So if you find that when you submit your assignment through Turnitin, if you find that all of your pictures have kind of moved around and the formatting has changed, which can sometimes happen when it goes through Turnitin, what you might like to do is actually save your file as a PDF, because that way it can't mess about with your assignment when it goes through that program. So that's just a tip for you there. Okay, so how do you submit it? So just in the usual form, through the submission box on the assignment to assessment brief, there'll be a box there towards the bottom. So we just want you to submit one Word document. So yeah, we don't want you to include multiple files, and we don't want an appendix for this. We actually want your photographs, images to be included within the body of the assignment. Okay, regarding extensions, because it is the final assessment for the unit, we really encourage you to try to get your assignment completed and submitted on time, or at least within that 48 hours. If you want a short extension, we can approve those. Longer extensions are a little bit trickier, just because there's quite a short turnaround time with the marking, and it does mean that if you did have a longer extension, it could potentially affect your release of result for the unit. So, but we can negotiate that, and if you are in a position where you do need that extension, then of course we can sort that out for you. So, but yeah, it's good to just be mindful of that anyway, because it is that final assessment of the unit. So, in order to support you with this assignment, obviously in addition to this flipped collaborate session and also the Padlet, which I showed you as well, it's a good idea to use the assignment to Q&A thread on your discussion board. We really do love you asking questions there. That way we can answer those, and other students can benefit from the answer as well, because a lot of the time they will have similar questions to you. So rather than you emailing your ELA, and then your ELA might get 10 of the same question via email, it's just nice if we can just put it up on the Q&A thread, and that way everyone benefits from the answer. Definitely use the Padlet. There's some, great sources of information on there on the Padlet, and just gets you thinking about the assignment a little bit more again. So everything we're going to put there on the Padlet. So we'll have the live recording, once we've got that finalized. So our live sessions for this will be running in week 6. So we'll put everything up there. I put all the slides on there. Anything related to this assignment, if something else pops up later on, we might just add that onto the Padlet. So do keep checking in on the Padlet, because it does get updated on a regular basis. Also too, you can always access the Student Hub if you need any support there. There's some great resources on referencing on the Student Hub, and lots of other things as well relating to assignments. So Studiosity too can be of use as well. So like I mentioned earlier, definitely read all of the modules, particularly focusing on the essential readings from modules 8 to 11. Participate in the weekly activities if you can, because there's direct links between those activities and this assignment. And attend our live session and watch the recordings as well. So, yeah. And of course, remember that your ELA is here to help. Absolutely. So, I wish you the very best of luck for your assignment. So, hopefully you found this session to be useful. It's just a starting point though, and we'll go through the assignment in even more depth at our live sessions, where we will also have some brainstorming opportunities, and where everyone will get to collaborate and think a little bit more deeply about the assignment and different ways of approaching it. So I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you very much for your time in watching this flipped video. Thanks again. Bye.